Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we're discussing the current state of PlayStation VR 2 versus the Quest 2. I previously did a video discussing the fact that comparing these two headsets is not apples to apples, but based on the current state of VR, it's still fair game. Each platform brings their own unique pros and cons, and today we'll discuss that even further. There's definitely a lot more to compare besides just graphics, but if that's your main focus, not surprisingly, the PlayStation VR 2 is crushing the Quest and can easily keep up with PCVR. Now, I'd love to hear how you feel about this comparison down in the comments, and there are of course the links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by VR Rock. VR Rock makes prescription lens inserts for all of your favorite VR headsets, and now they have them for the PlayStation VR 2. So if you've been struggling to get your eyeglasses to fit inside the headset, or you're afraid you might scratch the lens, these can be a great option. They magnetically connect, so they're easy to put on and take right back off. And if you're interested, I have a 10% discount code down in the description and a link to their webpage. Let's start by getting a few things out of the way. This video isn't about scoring points or declaring a winner. Out of the box, a PlayStation VR 2 alone is absolutely useless. And at the same time, out of the box, a Quest 2 might be the only VR device you ever need. The Quest 2 gives you an upgrade path if you want to make some improvements such as additional comfort options or connecting it to a PC for higher quality games. When you combine this with the significantly lower investment cost of this headset, it's easy to understand how many are quick to defend the Quest 2 against any PlayStation VR comparisons. The only real problem here is that Questers want it both ways. They're quick to point out that the PSVR 2 requires a PlayStation 5, but when you compare the graphics side by side, they say it's not fair and you should put it up against the Quest 2 combined with the PC. But that's actually a PCVR versus PlayStation VR comparison, and the vast majority of Quest owners never connect their device to a PC. So the Quest is actually the major VR platform, and it has to go up against any and all competition. Just like life, VR hardware comparisons aren't fair, but you have to play the hand you were dealt. So it's open season on the Quest, well let's go over the pros of these individual headsets. The Quest is obviously cheaper, more versatile, provides an upgrade path, has a huge library of games, and most notably wireless gaming. With the PSVR 2 you get superior performance, hardware, and games. These differences make it impossible to say which one is actually better, and it really just comes down to which one suits your needs more. What options do you actually value more, portability or higher immersion? And even more importantly, which product is in your price range? So from here, what we need to do is just move on, accept these products are different, and stop the whole fanboy stuff. All that does is segregate an already niche community. But the whole mobile versus console platform is unique when it comes to VR. Historically, we didn't make these same type of comparisons. No one was complaining that the Game Boy or PSP didn't have the same graphics as Nintendo or PlayStation. We just accepted the fact that mobile was a different way to game with its own unique pros and cons. So what makes VR different? Well, there are a few key aspects that have caused this. VR was originally introduced to us as the next generation of gaming. It was all about immersion, being transported to another world, and for the most part, it succeeded, but in Meta's effort to make VR mainstream, they forced VR to take a few steps backwards graphically and performance-wise. Additionally, they tried to sidestep this shortcoming by marketing how much better wireless gaming is. This went as far as encouraging developers to give Quest versions untethered theme names like In Death Unchained or Robo Recall Unplugged, and this campaign has been undeniably successful, as many Questers use the fact that PCVR and PlayStation VR have a cable like it's a mic drop moment. A tethered setup shouldn't be the end of a conversation. It's a trade-off for higher fidelity, and before you scream AirLink or virtual desktop at your screen, that's also a trade-off, but not one I plan to get into on this video. So standalone VR should be in its own separate mobile category, but Quest makes up roughly 70% of the VR market. When the average person thinks of VR, they think of Quest 2. So unless console or PC VR grows significantly, everything will be lumped together with no distinction, and we'll continue to compare games side by side, which is our next topic and inspiration for this video: side-by-side game comparisons. For every title that I've played on both the Quest 2 and PlayStation VR, the PSVR 2 is a better experience by far. There hasn't been a single example where I want to trade in my high-quality graphics to be free of the cable. Now, if you go out and watch some side-by-side clips, it really doesn't do the difference justice. Just how flat-screen VR trailers can't give us the true experience, you can't really see the differences until you experience them in VR. But the real question is, do the graphics really matter? Now, in a title like Walking Dead: The Saints and Sinners Chapter 2, it is an absolute yes. Saints and Sinners is about environmental immersion, and the Quest broke that so frequently that I just stopped playing this game and waited for either the PC VR release or PlayStation VR 2. Now, if you only game on Quest, you might feel like this is an overreaction, but when you experience higher end setups, you'll know what I'm talking about. The Quest 2 may be good enough, but when you've had something much better, it's hard to go backwards. That dark, gritty world of The Walking Dead is almost turned into a goofy-looking cartoon on the Quest. Additionally, the standalone headset is being pushed to its max, and even months after release, it's still experiencing numerous bugs. Performance is also a little sketchy, which can be a big issue for VR as it contributes to more motion sickness. But both the graphical and performance difference isn't always huge between platforms, and this is very much title dependent. Overall, there's very few Quest 2 games that I would pass on in a similar manner to Saints and Sinners Chapter 2. But there are other PC and console exclusives like Half-Life Alyx, Asgard's Wrath, Lone Echo, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Resident Evil 8, and Gran Turismo 7 that are just in a completely different league than what you can get from the Quest. Is this enough to justify spending hundreds or even thousands more on VR? Well, that's just up to you. For me personally, if my VR experiences were limited to the Quest only, I definitely wouldn't be as passionate about the VR industry as I am, and I know there's many others who feel the same way, and that's why we're comparing PCVR or PlayStation VR against the Quest. So this leads us to the next question. Will the Quest 3 help close this gap between mobile and console VR? The Quest 3 is launching later this year, and apparently will have twice the power of the Quest 2. To put that into perspective, the leap between Quest 1 and Quest 2 was about a 2x jump, and this helped raise game resolutions, increase frame rates, help with stability, and made larger projects like Resident Evil 4 possible. But even with a 2x increase, the Quest 3 would only be about 1/5 the power of a PlayStation 5 or 1/40th of an RTX 4090. Raw power is only one part of the equation though. Optimization goes a long way. Developers never target high-end hardware. Instead, they focus on hardware the average user has, and there's also different features supported by specific hardware. In the grand scheme of things, it means watered-down versions of high-end PCVR or PSVR titles can be ported to a mobile platform. Or at least that's the hope. Something like Half-Life Alyx could theoretically run on a Quest 3, but it really comes down to developers, and that's where Meta may have a leg up. They've purchased 9 VR gaming studios, many of which have remained silent for years now. It's possible what the Quest 3 lacks in hardware could be made up on the software side. This is similar to the original PlayStation VR, which had some of the weakest VR hardware at the time, but more than made up for it with some excellent games. While I truly hope Meta takes this approach and wows us with an amazing lineup, it's still possible their focus will remain on AR and the metaverse, leaving gaming on the back burner. Even with the company's split focus and the price tag going up on the Quest 3 compared to the Quest 2, Meta is still poised to be VR's frontrunner, but there could be a dynamic shift. If PlayStation VR 2 is highly successful, developers will once again start targeting higher-end VR. Larger projects will be released for PC and PSVR, and then later ported to the Quest 3 if it was possible. This is the opposite of the Quest-centric approach we see now, and as someone who's currently playing through a brand new PCVR exclusive, I really hope this happens because it's bringing me back to the glory days of PCVR, and combined with the PSVR 2 has helped restore my faith in this medium. But let me leave you guys with my controversial opinion. Out of the 13 headsets I have owned, the Index still remains my favorite. Now the hardware is starting to show its age, and I wish the screen was a bit sharper, but it's still the only full VR package out there. The Pico 4 looks great when paired with the PC, and it's wireless, but the Index still feels better to me. And I could spend an entire video on why I feel this way, but that's my hot take, and I would love to hear what yours is down in the comments right now.
And that was today's video, brought to you by my dad, Mateo311. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here,
Consider subscribing.
consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
We'll see you guys on next time.
We'll see you guys on next time.